Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This show where we take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 13th of May, 2019, we are starting the first story in the two-part finale for the 7th series of 4th Doctor Adventures, Kill the Doctor! Exclamation point, written by Guy Adams. And we're starting, of course, with Part 1. Now, Part 1, as a story, well, it's interesting that the idea of the story is that the plot, that the Doctor and Leela arrive on this, it's not a planet, it's basically a place for shopping. They're going shopping, which is, fun, interesting. It's most definitely not one of those. It's not one of those stories where, you have a lot of stakes in the first, in this first episode, mainly because there's this big build up to the villain of the piece being Sutekh. We already know he's Sutekh. He's plastered on the cover, and there's this sort of built-in idea that the story is inspired by Egypt. Ooh, ancient Egyptian inspired. It's an ancient Egyptian inspired planet. So, obviously you just immediately get that sort of feel for the story that this is an Egypt-y inspired place. There's it wears the inspiration on its sleeve of ancient Egypt being one of those, being the setting for the story. It's it's a big part of the story. What's interesting though is that a lot of the idea here is that it's partially playing kind of on the Cyberman idea of Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel, a new series where you have the entire society sort of basically being built upon, the entire society is built on this idea of of being in the middle of, sort of built around their technology. They have this idea of RingNet, which is this, it's basically an internet type thing that's done in a neural network, and it's sort of influencing the populace. It's because that's sort of where the story's going, that the population of this city is being influenced by the people. It's it's one of those stories where you could get a good sense of what the story's doing, but what's interesting really is the society is an interesting sort of parallel of our own. There's some commentary here basically on the fact that we don't treat the homeless well enough, mainly done with Leela. She gets this sort of female quote-unquote friend character who is basically there to be a character who kind of gets taken over, and she really doesn't get a whole lot of necessarily development, but she does get enough so that she gets a good old-fashioned story, and she and Leela get along well enough that they that they're, you know, big, full characters. They have they are telling a full story. And you have this idea of Leela being really compassionate because her quote unquote people, the 17, didn't have this idea. There's also some really good interactions early on between Leela and the Doctor about sort of shopping, why the Doctor doesn't want to take K9 shopping with them. Because this idea that, oh, we'll have to tie him up outside and he'll end up, he'll end up, just he might either bark at the locals or even worse, talk to them. It's this there are these nice little snappy jokes that Guy Adams has snuck in. He really does understand the Fourth Doctor as a character really well. There most definitely is a real sense that this is the Fourth Doctor. As a character, he really comes across as as a fully realized version of himself. That being said, and the big cliffhanger is the neural net is influenced so that everyone wants to quote unquote kill the Doctor. That's the big reveal, and it works well. It's well executed. It's a fun twist, but the episode is just kind of plain. It's solid. It's fun. It's a good start, but it doesn't go all the way through with it. So overall, I'm going to give the Kill the Doctor Part 1 a 7 out of 10. It is still the 13th of May 2019, and I just finished listening to Part 2 of Kill the Doctor. Now, Part 2 of Kill the Doctor does some rather interesting things with the story. The big cliffhanger is where I'm going to start with it, because it actually does a pretty good cliffhanger. The cliffhanger is Sutekh is in control of the world. It's a really, really solid, big scale cliffhanger with being mainly a big reveal to sort of try to show where the story not only could be going, but is going. It's very much a show off of. You get a lot of Sutekh's sort of power in here. Gabriel Wolf is returning to the role. He played Sutekh in the Pyramids of Mars, and so obviously he's back in the role, which is a very good. He does a very good job in the role. He really does embody the character, and all the evil the character represents. He's a terrifying villain, and very much the I'm here in charge. He's been in this Rain woman's mind for almost her entire life, and he's basically been manipulating her so she's been building up his plans. The whole idea is that it's his plan that needs that he's trying to get to fruition, and in trying to get it to fruition, he creates a situation where you have these characters built up over the course of the episode, and they all sort of build their big thing. You have the Doctor teamed up with a police officer who is too poor to buy his own thing. Again, you have this interesting sort of commentary on doing basically an overactive, basically doing overacting overactive commentary on sort of the dangers, so to speak, of capitalism, and how the story really does rely on who does rely on everything basically being one of those, basically relies on having a big plot, and a real big sense of what the story is doing. Now, what's perhaps the most interesting is that you have sort of this almost falling out between Leela and the Doctor here that is done really, really well. It's basically the idea is that Leela has, doesn't want to, she doesn't want to basically stand by. She wants to try to help all the homeless people. So we get these nice parallel plot lines where the Doctor's trying to figure out what Sutekh's doing, what his deal is, and generally how that works, while the Doctor, while Leela is basically teaming up with the homeless, stealing food, including chocolate, and she actually gives this really nice bit of advice that's really, really touching somewhere in the middle of the story. Basically that you shouldn't be worrying about the future. You should be focusing on the present, and in focusing on the present, you should be enjoying the happy times when you can. It's a very nice little. It's a very small speech, but it's a very nice speech that just it really sort of speaks to a lot of what this story has been doing. It builds up the idea of just what the Doctor has taught her, and it really works as a nice culmination of her entire arcs here. Like, she could be leaving at the end of this story, and have really given a full arc. She obviously doesn't, because she still has she leaves on television, obviously, but it's a very good way of ending the story, of ending this first episode, is giving Leela her plot line and really giving it a lot of thought as to what Leela's motivations are, what she wants from the world, where she comes from as a character. It really is really well performed by Louise Jameson. Again, the big problem here is that it's a character piece, but the plot needs to be better. There isn't too much plot here. It's a bunch of comedy. Like, the Doctor's plot line especially is very weak, where Leela's is really the highlight. So overall, I'm going to give Kill the Doctor Part 2 a 7 out of 10. That being said, we average up the scores to give Kill the Doctor! A final score of 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and join me next time when we take a look at the thrilling finale of this 2-release story with The Age of Sutekh.